Good morning everyone and welcome to today's schools training session. I am Jade Matembo, Legal Counsel at TPN Credit Bureau, and with me in studio today we have Wendy Porter, Product Specialist at TPN, who will be presenting today's session. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks, Jade. Morning, everybody.
We are so excited to launch the PURQ integration into our employment verification inquiry for our schools. We have heard your cries regarding the challenges you face to verify previous employment. The PURQ inquiry was launched in December last year for our SmartCheck inquiry, but as of last week, it's now been integrated into employment verification inquiry. In terms of the National Credit Act Regulation 18(4)G, you can only perform a credit check on an employee who is in a position to handle cash and finances.
That's right, Jade. Sorry, if you wouldn't mind just reading it for the viewers, then they'll understand. So where the position handles cash and finances, you may have a look at a person's traditional credit information, which, as Jade mentioned, is in our SmartCheck inquiry. Where the position does not handle cash and finances, you legally may not look at a person's credit information. You may only have a look at their employment information, which I will go through on the system and show you the two different inquiries based on the purposes of employment.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. So can you tell us, what is a PURQ inquiry?
So the PURQ inquiry is your qualification inquiry, but it's only for tertiary qualifications that have been obtained.
So how do you vet someone who has a matric certificate?
So matric certificate, we have a separate inquiry on TPN for the qualifications, and that is done through our supplier MIE.
Okay, on that note, over to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Jade. Morning, everyone. Nice of you to join us. So as you heard, the purpose of today's training is specifically for doing employment inquiries, obviously verifying the qualifications, and then I'm going to go into the criminal checks as well, which also forms part of the employment cycle. So you heard Jade mention the SmartCheck inquiry. That SmartCheck inquiry is only available to our TPN data providers. The SmartCheck inquiry is a combination of our own TPN database, which is rentals and obviously school fee data. It's also made up of our verified employment information. It's made up of Transunion's information with the person's account history and how they've paid their accounts, the deeds information if a person owns property, and of course recently launched into the employment side of things is the PURQ inquiry. So SmartCheck is what you will use when, as we've mentioned, you are going to employ somebody for the purposes whereby they handle cash and finances. But remember, it's not just your accountants or your bookkeepers that you're going to do this inquiry for. It will also be on your teachers, because your teachers are the ones that are also collecting monies for excursions or selling of t-shirts and caps. Your admin staff in the front office, they're also collecting monies for the same things. So when you perform the SmartCheck inquiry, where the position handles cash and finances, you can then go on and have a look at the traditional credit information. So with regards to the employment side of things, TPN is the only registered credit bureau in South Africa that stores verified employment information. And that is the key. It's verified. It's not employment information that our members are just typing into a database. This employment information comes from, like all registered credit bureaus, from the members who belong to that specific bureau. So our TPN members are the ones that are loading the employment information into our verified employment database, and that comes from our members' payroll systems. It pulls through from the UIF declaration data file. It's that same data file that you're sending off to the Department of Labour every month, or the UIF department. That same data file gets submitted to TPN. Once it's loaded in, you will then have access to this SmartCheck inquiry that we keep talking about. Right, so I'm going to show you on the TPN system how to perform this SmartCheck inquiry. You've obviously all received your login details. Most important, you must have consent from the person before you run any background searches on them. That includes for the purposes of employment. So you'll log into TPN, you'll click on credit checks at the top, perform a new consumer credit check, and then you'll obviously have to have the person's ID number, name, surname, address, and cell phone number. In the case where you only have a passport number, you'll also need the person's date of birth and country of origin. In the case of a passport number, you'll see there's a blue link here, change to passport number, and there you'll fill in the date of birth and the country of origin. Click next once you've filled in the various fields. Your credits for employment, you'll always make it basic credits. You will perform the ID verification, and then of course here it's going to ask you, as per the National Credit Act, have you got consent to run the inquiry? You'll tick the box, click next. At the top of your list of inquiries is the SmartCheck inquiry. It's already ticked for you. You'll simply perform the credit check. What we do is we put up a summary page for you first, and this will obviously show you the photo of the individual. It will also give you a credit score in terms of their credit agreements. It gives you a graph on how they've paid all their agreements. On TPN, it will include rental and school fee history. And of course, further down, it will then highlight in red any negative information, so judgments and defaults. And then from here, it will give you a breakdown of their credit information. If we have a look at the TPN inquiry, which is your leases and your school fee history, it will show you who the rental agent or landlord is that the person rented from, what their rental amount is, and of course how they've paid their rent on a monthly basis. For previous school fee history, it will give the name of the school fee amount, and again how the parent has paid their school fees every month. On the employment side, which is very important, I mean, I always say an employee, they can either make your business or break your business. It's very important to understand where the employee has previously worked and what their track record is in terms of employment. So again, it will show you previous businesses the person has worked for, their position, are they casual staff or permanent staff, and of course if they've left, it'll give you the reason for leaving and their period of employment. You will notice on this employment information there is no salary information displayed. What it does do is it gives a breakdown per month of a person's earnings. So like myself, I earn a basic salary every single month. So every month you will see, if you do an inquiry on me, January, February, March, April, my earnings for each month is made up of 100% basic. In the case where somebody earns commission, you will find every month it will be different. It will say for the month of January, the person's earnings was made up of 50% commission and 50% basic. Or lucky for people that get bonuses at the end of the year, it will show for the month of December, your earnings was 40% basic and 60% bonus, but no actual amounts are displayed on the employment information. On your Transunion tab, this is where you are going to see general information of the person. They're also known as names, and of course the breakdown of all their different accounts. Where the position of employment handles cash and finances, if you see a person is financially strained, this credit information is the reason why you're allowed to look at credit information, because if there's negative information on a person's credit profile and you go and put them in a position handling cash and finances, the risk to your school or your business is too high, because you might find money maybe start going missing because they are now trying to correct their credit profile. And that is the reason why you're able to look at credit information for the purposes of employment, handling cash and finances. So from the traditional credit information, you will be able to see which accounts a person has, what their monthly installment is, and of course how they've paid their accounts every single month. It will also display judgment and default information if the person has had any judgments or defaults taken against them for traditional credit information. Okay, further up, your deeds tab is obviously if the person owns property, and here the qualifications tab. So as Jade mentioned earlier, we did include this qualifications tab into SmartCheck at the end of last year, and this is your tertiary education on an individual. So you will be able to see all the different qualifications that the person has obtained on the qualifications tab. Again, it's important to know that a person is qualified for a certain degree, especially in a schooling environment. You certainly don't want a teacher that claims they are qualified and then they are not. As we know, I think it was last week or the week before, 75% of our government employees do not have the necessary qualifications. And if we look at the state of affairs that our country is in, it has a ripple effect. Make sure your teachers have the necessary qualifications that is required for that particular position. It's very important. Right, Jade, I don't know if there's any questions so far.
None at this stage, Wendy.
Fine? Okay. Right, so the next thing I want to show you is where the position does not handle cash and finances. As we mentioned, you then may only have a look at their employment information. Again, I reiterate, that employment information you will only find on TPN's Credit Bureau. You will follow the same steps: credit checks, perform a new consumer credit check, fill in the person's details, make sure you've selected basic credits, again verify the ID, have you got consent, tick the box, click next. You will then, sorry, I'm just looking at this. Oh, I beg your pardon. Just give me a second, I've clicked on the wrong thing. I just want to show you how to perform the individual employment inquiry. So here it is here. Where the position doesn't handle cash and finances, you will then untick your SmartCheck and you will tick the employment verification block. That's all you need to do. When you perform the inquiry, you will see on your live system, it will bring up the TPN tab and it will bring up the employment tab as well as your qualifications tab. Because remember, we've bundled our employment verification inquiry with the qualification inquiry as of this week. So depending on what type of position the person is applying for, handling cash and finances or not, you can either perform a SmartCheck, which includes the credit information, or you can simply just do your employment check, which includes your PURQ information as well. Jade mentioned earlier on how do you perform or how do you verify doing a qualification for matric certificates only. And I'd mentioned there we have a separate qualification inquiry. So again, you'll click on credit checks, perform a new consumer credit check, fill in the particulars of the individual, make sure you've clicked on basic credits, perform the ID, yes, I do have consent to run the inquiry, click next. Towards the bottom, you will see the qualification inquiry here. When you tick that inquiry, it will then ask you to fill in the qualification name, the year obtained, which institution it was at, and of course the name on the certificate and the certificate number. So you will fill in all that information and click finish. the qualification inquiry for matric certificates, there is, it's not like our PURQ inquiry. There is a delayed response of between 24 to 48 hours. You will then get the result back if the person has got a matric certificate or not. That result you will find on the TPN system in the TPN mailbox once it's complete. So if you click on credit checks and you say view mailbox, there you will find the result of that particular qualification inquiry. Unlike PURQ, the PURQ inquiry is immediate and it gives you all the what you call it, qualifications that an individual has. Okay, Jade, any questions on qualifications?
Don't have any questions yet,
Not
but we
yet.
encourage our delegates to send them through.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to talk about the criminal inquiries. So obviously you guys being schools, you have to be in compliance with the Sexual Offences Act. Basically, the long and the short of that act is you may not employ individuals who have got sexual offence convictions against minors. The only way you will be able to tell if somebody has a conviction of a sexual nature against a minor is performing a criminal inquiry. The Registrar of Sexual Offences, which is the government organisation, they have recently put on their website that the Sexual Offenders Register is now in operation. However, only the Registrar of Sexual Offences can compare or look into the register and compare names. However, a criminal inquiry will specifically say if a person has been convicted of a sexual offence against a minor or not. So by performing a criminal check, you will know immediately if that individual or the victim of the crime was a minor.
We do have a question, Wendy.
Sure.
Are criminal checks a requirement for all teachers and schools? And if so, why?
So schools have to be in compliance with the Sexual Offences Act. So criminal checks need to be performed on all staff members and all people who come into contact with the children at the school who are under the age of 18. So your ballet teachers, your tennis coaches, your tuck shop people, your boarding schools, your hostel staff, your groundsmen, any person at the school who comes into contact with the children would have to undergo a criminal inquiry or a criminal check.
Thank you, Wendy. I just have one more question.
Sure.
I'm just going to take it a step back.
Sure.
Could you please elaborate on the blocked by institution status on the qualification check?
Okay, sure. Just to go back. Okay, so the qualification name, you will type matric, the year completed, for me, for example, 1994. The institution will be the name of the school or college, Eden Glen High. That's where I matriculated. And then, of course, when you click finish, what happens is within 24 hours, that result will be updated, as I say, in your mailbox. Does that clear it up for the institution? Happy with that?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. So going back to criminal checks. Sorry, I just lost my trail of thought there. Yes, so the criminal inquiry will tell you if the person has a sexual offence against a minor. The Sexual Offences Act says that should a school decide not to perform criminal checks or not be in compliance with the Sexual Offences Act, the head of the school or the principal could be imprisoned for up to 7 years. So it's very important that your school is in compliance with this particular act. I myself go to schools and capture on-site fingerprints, and I promise you I have come across many employees of schools where the conviction has come back to say they have been convicted of a sexual offence against a minor. It's very scary, and you know, I say even if it wasn't a law, we still need to look after our children. Perform your criminal checks, do what's required of you in terms of law, and of course that way our children then are safe. Schools are supposed to be a safe environment, so let's make it safe for them. Right, so with regards to the criminal checks, at the moment we are running a special till the end of February 2022. I'm sure you saw on the invite, it's a cost of $245.29 excluding VAT. If you would like me to, or book me to come and do your fingerprints on site at your school, you are most welcome to email our help desk. The email address does pop up on the screen. There we go, helpdesk@tpn.co.za. We will make a booking. I come on site, I capture fingerprints, and again within 24 to 48 hours, that result of the criminal check is updated on TPN in the mailbox section. If it's found where the person has got a criminal record, we update the mailbox to say possible illicit activity. We don't update the mailbox to say what the actual conviction is. The actual conviction we will then email through to the principal or the head. In the event where it is a sexual offence against a minor, we don't email that through. I hand deliver that conviction, and we then discuss the legal process thereafter of what the school's requirement in law has to happen from then onwards. Okay, so to perform your credit checks, your criminal checks, again you'll click on the heading credit checks, perform a new consumer check. This inquiry reason you will then change to employment/qualification verification. That's important. Fill in the person's ID numbers, name, surname, address and cell phone number. Click next. Make sure your CredX is sitting on basic. Again, ID verification. Yes, I've got consent. Click next. And right at the bottom of your list of inquiries is the TPN. It's called SACE check. That is actually the criminal inquiry. But again, if your teachers need this for their SACE registration purposes, it then SACE now accept electronic criminal inquiries as part of that registration process. So the TPN SACE check is the criminal check, and it's used for both purposes. Click next. Yes, I understand the person has to go for fingerprints, and finish. I then come through to your school, capture each person's fingerprints, and as I say, the following day the results are then updated on the TPN system. Okay, that is my training for today. We've gone through employment inquiries and the different types of employment. We've gone through qualification inquiries, the two different qualification inquiries we have, and of course the criminal check process. Jade, any questions?
Just a question from Wanda. She'd like your email address. I will provide it in the chat.
Sure. Anything else?
No, we don't have any questions
No
at
questions.
this stage.
Okay. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Please, any further questions, you are most welcome to email helpdesk@tpn, or as Jade said, she will put my email address in the feed. And further to that, have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you, Jade, for facilitating.
It's a pleasure.
Bye, everybody.